Hello, this is Jennifer. I hope you're having a good day. Today's video shares a technique that I call distress ink lifting. This is a great technique because you don't need much. You just need distress inks, stamps, and water. I'm going to be using some new products from Ellen Hudson and Julie Ebersol, so be sure to stay tuned to the end of the video where I'll give you a closer look at the entire release. But first, let's go ahead and do these technique cards here. This is one of the new stamp sets that I've mentioned, and this has the most beautiful hydrangea image on it. And I'm going to white heat emboss this onto white cardstock. Now for this technique, I find it works best with cardstock instead of watercolor paper. Now this is Neenah white 80-pound cardstock, but you could probably use any white cardstock you have. I'm going to ink up the flower with Versamark ink, but notice I'm going to wipe away the ink from the bottom of the stem, the closed part of the stem, because I want to make the stem longer. So I'm going to stamp this closer to the top of this is about a 2¼ inch by 5½ inch piece of cardstock. Now after I've stamped that, I'm going to go ahead and add my white embossing powder and heat set that. Now this is one of my favorite tricks for making a stem longer on a flower, is I go ahead and I stamp it again but upside down. So I'm using that same stem just to lengthen it a little bit. So here I'm going to ink up the stem, just the stem, ink it up with the Versamark ink, again wipe away that closed part of the bottom of the stem, and line up this stem with the one that's already heat embossed on our paper. And this will extend it and make it longer. Now, if you have a Versamark pen, you could use that instead and just draw the stem longer. I just found that this worked out just as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add my white embossing powder to that, and we have a longer stem. And I also stamped the leaf from that set and white heat embossed that. So now we have this long strip, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same with another piece. Okay, now it's time for the fun part. This is where you take your distress ink, a bold color of distress ink. I chose to use Blueprint Sketch, and you press this down as firmly as you can, as generously as you can onto this piece. You want to put down so much color that there is no hint of that white cardstock showing anymore. You want this to be solid. When you think you've covered it, put more on. Use an ink blending tool if you need to really work into the crevices around that heat embossed image, but you want this to be as solid and as bold and as dark as you can get it. The more ink you put down, the better this technique will work. And now it's time for the magic. All you need is a watercolor brush and water. And all I'm doing is dropping water into the petals on this image. Now notice I'm not really working the paper. I'm not going back and forth like I would normally when I'm painting. I'm just dropping the color in because remember, this is not watercolor paper. This is regular cardstock, so it will pill if you work it too much, but you don't need to work it too much. Just kind of drop and dab the water into the areas and notice how the water reacts with the distress ink and softens it, and you get this beautiful look. Now, the longer this is left to dry, the more intense the difference will be. You can try this with other dye inks. Some other dye inks work, but definitely works best with a distress ink background. And by the way, when I'm adding this water, I'm adding a pretty good amount. You can kind of see the shine of the water until it absorbs into the paper. Now I wanted to add a little bit of color to the petals and to the leaf. So I've taken some picked raspberry pink distress ink, put it on my craft sheet, and I'm picking up some of that pink color with my water and brush and just painting in the flower petals. Now you could spend some time to kind of blend it out, make it darker in the center and lighter towards the tips of the flowers. But really, with this technique, the less time you spend, the better the results will be. So all I'm really doing is adding some pink into the petals. And all you'll end up with is like a light blue flower with some pink touches here and there. And it really is beautiful. Now, this is one of those techniques that while you're working, it may not look so hot, but as it dries, the colors really intensify and you get really gorgeous results. I'm using my heat gun to kind of speed up the intensity just to show you, but normally I like to do this all right away. I don't want that distress ink, that blue distress ink background to dry completely because then you don't get as much reaction. You want to ink up the background and within a few minutes, you don't want to wait like a day or so. You want to go ahead and add that water and any additional color that you want. Now for the stem and the leaf, I'm using some mowed lawn distress ink along with some water and just painting that in. And now that I'm done with my entire flower, I went ahead and added some heat just so I can see that all intensify some. And then I decided to add some green dots to center the flowers, and now it's complete. I would recommend you could either heat set this or just walk away and let it dry for a bit, but really you want those colors to absorb and the results will be beautiful. Okay, so I trimmed this down a little bit. So this is about 5 inches tall now. I'm adding it to a 4¼ by 5 inch white top folding note card. Now I wanted to do something a little different to this. I wanted to kind of have the flower set back a little bit and the white around it to be popped up. And I wanted some faux stitching too. So I grabbed one of these die sets from My Favorite Things. There's actually 2 die sets in this pocket together, but these all offer unique faux stitching edges. So I've picked one that I want to use, and I'm just going to take it and use a little piece of tape to tape it along the edge of a piece of white cardstock. And I'm just going to run this through my die cut machine. So this doesn't actually die cut a shape, it just die cuts tiny little faux stitches. I'm going to do that again, but this time on a narrow piece of white cardstock that will go on the right side of our card. Now I wanted to pop these up, so I cut 2 pieces of white craft foam to be slightly smaller than both of those pieces of white cardstock, and I'm putting some Be Creative tape on both sides of this craft foam. This craft foam will just give some nice even raised dimension behind these white pieces. You could use craft foam tape if you wanted to, but I prefer this because it goes through the mail much nicer. So now that I have double-sided tape on both sides of each of the craft foam pieces, I can go ahead and add those to the back of the white and then add them onto the card. If you wanted to save time with this card design, you could just do your stamping right on the card, but I like the idea of having the flowers kind of set back behind these white strips. So now I have that one on the left down. Now it's time to add that thin piece of craft foam behind the thin piece of white cardstock that will go on the right side of the card. At this point, I wasn't sure what to do for a sentiment, and I tried many die cut words, but I decided that it was best to keep a simple stamp sentiment. So this is another new set from Julie and Ellen Hudson. I took the You Got This, and it has coffee after it, and I cut the word coffee off, just so the message was You Got This. This is an adorable stamp set, and I really like the message You Got This. I'm going to ink this up with some black ink and stamp it right onto that white cardstock. Now, I tested it first, made sure that it stamped nicely first because I didn't want to mess up my card now that I have everything glued together. I probably should have done the stamping first, but again, I wasn't sure where I was going with it. Now for the second card, I trimmed it down just to save some time on the coloring, but I wanted to show you that faux stitching frame that I created. So here's the trimmed piece. I'm just going to glue it towards the top center of a 4¼ by 5½ inch top folding white note card. And I have another faux stitch die from the same sets that I showed you earlier. I'm going to line this up right against that stamped piece in the center there. And you'll see that I'm also putting the edge of the border, the end of the border along the crease of the card up there on the left. And now I'm going to run this through my machine, and this will do faux stitching to the right. Now I'm going to move it and do the same thing to the left of the stamped piece. Again, I'm not going over that crease line that you see there because I don't want to put the pattern in the back of the card, just the front of the card. Again, lining it up right with the edge of my stamp piece and run it through again. And then I will repeat this and do this on the horizontal above and below the stamped piece. Now this die is about 6 inches long, so it fits going through this direction of my die cut machine also. This is a great way to kind of add a little interest to a simple white background. I then decided to keep the sentiment simple, and I stamped a hello image, and that's from one of the stamp sets I'll show you in a moment. And then I needed some shine on this, so I added some Wink of Stella shimmer just to the petals and the leaves, anywhere where we had added water before, just to give a little bit of shine. It's hard to see in the video, but you definitely see it in the pictures and for sure in real life. This technique is really fun. I love distress inks because they react with water and you can do fun things like this. At the end of this video, I'll link to some other videos about distress ink and water that might be interesting to you also. But first, I wanted to give you a closer look at some of the other new products in this Ellen Hudson Julie Ebersol release. This is one of the other stamp sets that I really like in this release. It's called All Inside. There are lots of open greetings there at the top that you can add color to the inside. But the best part is that little bear on the bottom. He's got these little hands. The coordinating die set, look, it cuts the hands. So you can actually put something in his hands. So you could stamp and cut out the sun or some hearts and put that in his hands. But what I want to do is roll up like a $20 bill, kind of flatten it and tuck that behind his hands and give that as a gift to someone. Here is the coffee set that I showed you earlier. I use the sentiment from this. There are a lot of coffee sets out there, but this is by far my favorite. I like the style of the pictures, and I also like the sentiments in it. Really fun and playful, and you can keep cards very simple with this set. And of course, the coordinating dies are available. Next is Up the Happy. I really like the sentiment in here that says everything is going to be okay. I'll be using that one a lot. I also like The World is Super Lucky to Have You, and the beautiful images in here, especially those clouds and that balloon. I love them. There are also coordinating dies available for this one. Now this is a great alphabet set. It's called the Basic Alpha. I like these because they are cut close to the letters, so you can put several of these letters together close on a block and stamp a whole word at once. The numbers and the punctuation are also included, which really makes it fantastic. Now we have Totally Awesome. This is great because you can kind of build up a sentiment, which you know I'm a big fan of, with a variety of font styles here. I like the open letters, so you can add some color to it. And there are also some die-cut words, which I'm going to show you in a moment, that team up nicely with this stamp set. Here's the gorgeous set that I used earlier, and I just wanted to mention that there's a beautiful Thinking of You sentiment on it, and there are coordinating dies available for that also. Now on to the dies. I really love the detail of these dies. This is the Many Thanks. Now it cuts it connected as one word or as one long die cut, but I wanted to show you could cut the letters apart and stack them or just use the thanks alone also. Cuts very detailed. I also really like this kind of brushstroke hello. It's kind of bold and it works on a variety style of cards. Same with this wonderful. I love how it's got that curve to it. Very unique. And this teams up nicely with the Totally Awesome, I think it's called, stamp set that I just showed you before. So you can kind of create a greeting between the stamping and the die cut word. Here is the Totally Fabulous set. The fabulous in here is wonderful. I like how detailed it is and playful. It's a great size. There's also the Totally that cuts along an edge, so there are a lot of fun die cut techniques you can do with that. Here we have the positive words, which includes magic, amazing, and awesome. Again, this will team up with that sentiment set I showed you earlier. Here are the bitty envelope and envelope sliders. These are cute to add to any handmade card, and I love those folded up envelopes. And then finally, the Bed of Roses background die cut. I just cut a little scrap paper. It cuts an entire card front. This would be beautiful to put glitter behind it and then put the die cut on top. Absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so that was a quick rundown of all the new products from Julie and Ellen. A great release. I just wanted to show them to you quickly. I hope you give this technique of lifting Distress Ink a try. It's really a fun one, and you can do so many great things with it. If you're interested in the products I use, I link them below in my YouTube description. You can click here on the top left on my logo, and that will take you to the blog post with more information and a giveaway. And then the two videos in the middle are some other Distress Ink techniques that I think you might like, so be sure to click those. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll come back again soon. Have an awesome day.